Good evening, everyone. Just let me do a little bit of sorting out and make sure that everything looks good on the systems. It's never quite guaranteed, but it's working better than a lot of times. Let me just share that. And then I can pay attention. That's always helpful, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is. Excellent. Good. Pick that up. And then we can pop that out of hand's way over there. And then we can see two different sets of things working. Let's put those glasses where I will be able to find them after the live, because that is also a bit of a headache. There we are. Cool. Let's just wait a little bit and see what happens and who comes in. We've got someone in on top of me. I can see that. It's always a positive feature of life, I think. There we are. Let's just find some towel. There we are. Good afternoon, Sheila. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. I may, or I may not, have bitten off a bit more than I can chew this evening. But there we are. We will soon find out. But I have done quite a lot of prep because of that. So let me just lift this off here and put some of this stuff out of harm's way, but where I can access it when I need to, because that's also always cool, isn't it? But as you can see, I have done quite a lot of prep because I have a set of boxes. 1, 2, and a diddy one. So we're going to make the trio of boxes. The top one is completely finished, but I'll talk all the way through that, and it uses the same processes that I'm going to use on the rest of the boxes. So I just thought it'd be something a little bit different today, because I just thought it might be nice to do something that was a little bit different. And you don't often see me doing home decor pieces. So now then, the only thing with these is I have to make sure I get these lids around the right way because of the holes in them. Let me just grab this sample, but there we are, there's a clean one. That's also always good. And then we can work from here. So these were plain wooden boxes that come as a set of 3 from Pentacolor. I believe in the UK, Helen from Just Like Home Interiors might have them in, but any set of stacking boxes will work, or you could just do one. The choice is entirely up to you. And because they're wooden boxes, it's a porous surface, and so because there's a lot of paint to cover, I have used the white acrylic primer to cover everything, as this works really well on porous surfaces, and it's a little less chalky and more smooth to work with than the gesso that I typically use on my moulded pieces. And I didn't think you needed to see me painting 3 paints, 3 boxes. Well, you could have done, but I didn't think you needed to. So whenever you prime a box, good evening, Connie, you will find that you get areas of the wood grain, particularly a wood grain box, that lift up, and therefore it's quite good practice just to give the surface a little bit of sand, just to get rid of the extra pieces and the texture. It doesn't need to be vigorous, but it will just take off any sort of rough areas and will make life easier. So we're going to go through the processes that I've used for the box, because I think that's quite handy, helpful. There we are. So then just give it a good brush down. Make sure you've got no excess stuff on it. Good evening, Connie. Good. Welcome, welcome. Okie dokie. So we've got some bits to do, and I'm wanting my boxes to coordinate, but not to be identical. So we've got a neutral surface, and we're going to do some fairly simple techniques tonight, but ones that I think will work quite nicely. So we're going to start with Decor Paint Chalky. Let me just move some of this clutter before I get it all out of the way and in the way over there, and I get stuff in the way. So I've picked a chalky paint from Pentart, but it could be an acrylic named matte, or it could even be one of the new wall colours. I just happen to like this cream white shade, and I think it gives a nice finish. And although this is a primed white surface, I'm just going to give it a coat of the white paint, this cream white colour, because I think it's going to work quite nicely for me. You could actually take out some masking tape is the word I'm looking for, and tackle that, but you don't necessarily have to. So I'm just going to pop this all the way around here. It's a bit thick, but there we are. We'll thin that out in a minute and spread it out. So I can see that there's a difference between the cream white that I'm popping over the top and the acrylic primer that I've added underneath. There we are. Let's just thin those colours out so we don't have a ridiculous amount of paint. We might have, as I say, I've done several steps along the way to try and so we can do things. Ultimately, we'll have a set of 3 coordinating but different boxes that could be used together or gifted separately. The choice is yours. So, but I didn't think you really needed to see me doing this for 3 boxes. Some of them I've painted in a slightly different pattern than these, but that's okay. So I'm wanting to have a predominantly white outside for this box and a blue inside. The second box is blue on the outside and the cream white on the inside, and the smallest box is predominantly white on the outside and blue on the inside, so that they'll work as a trio. And by keeping the products on the same paper line but mixing it up, then we'll have the same ultimate effect, that it will all work together. So that's the plan. There we are. We might have to do a little bit, some of the layers dry, we might have to do a little bit of mixing up, and you can add more than one layer of paint if you want to, if you don't get coverage that you're wanting. The choice is, of course, always entirely up to you what you do. Because I'm wanting to decoupage particularly pale papers underneath, then that is quite helpful. And why I'm wanting a neutral background. Well, I don't know what I've done to upset people tonight. It doesn't look like very many people are watching with us today. But hey ho, we'll carry on regardless. Hopefully people will pick it up post live. Who knows? Who knows? There we are. It's always a guessing game as to who will join us and who won't. There we are. Ha! The lovely Sarah Marchant has joined us. Thanking you, my darling. Always appreciated. Always appreciated. There we are. Let's just pop that into there. Right. Let's tackle that binging whilst the going is good and get rid of that. Thank you, Connie. There we are. We'll do that. And off live, I will paint the bottom of them, because you don't need to see me do the bottom. You really don't. Well, you could do, but yeah. So that all of the sides will be the same. There we are. Much appreciated for everyone's support. I know life can be busy, can't it, for people? You know, it's not always possible to do everything. There we are. So let's just give that a little bit of a blast dry so that that will help with things along the way. I think it always takes a little bit. You know, 6 o'clock in the UK is definitely not the greatest of times for people. For many families, it's just about got home from tea, from work, or picking the kids up from nursery. And you know, so it's a busy time in the UK for people, and not the greatest time for life. But for everyone in Europe, it's, you know, it's that bit later on in the evening. So it's a great time, and for my friends in the US, it's, you know, it's early afternoon or even morning. So it's a great time for that. So let's just give that a wee bit of a blast dry. As I say, I did think about all of these steps along the way. Let me just dry that. I've got a thick lump of paint there, which I don't particularly want because it will buy with texture. So there we are. Let's just even that out and give this a wee bit of a dry. I also know that I've got one very good friend celebrating her 25th wedding anniversary, and therefore she is a bit busy today, which is also cool. Yeah, just give this a little bit of a whiz dry on the outside. So wherever you're going to add rice papers, you definitely need to give your surfaces a good, you know, have a nice neutral colour underneath. If it's a very dark rice paper, I don't always paint over my wood pieces because they're reasonably pale. And if I want a vintage tone, then I might actually pre-prime cover something with a slightly more beigey colour, because the tone of your rice paper is affected by your base colour. So that's a good start, isn't it, when you can't put your words. Let me just stick A into B. So I am using a Timeless Collection by Stamperia, because hence the title of the project, because that just seemed logical to me. Let's just grab a brush that won't matter if I get. I've got lots of these next to me. Right, that can sit up there to dry, so that is reasonably dry. So there we are. And the reason I've got 2 boxes is because I have rice papers that I want to mix and match and share about. Okay, so hence the 2 boxes, because products are expensive. Right, now then, well, that's not good, is it? Let's just take that and not have muck all over my hands. There we are. Right, I just now need to know which is the front and which is the back. So I can see, and so can you. There's holes on here at each end. So that is the back of my box. So that's a good starting place. And I have chosen this particular rice paper from the collection because I rather like it, and it's going to provide a focal imagery to go onto there. And as ever, I am going to use my decoupage varnish and glue mat. Good evening. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing. It's always appreciated, my darling. You are so right. Sharing is caring. Good evening, Isabella. Welcome. Hello, Isabel, and hello, Juliana. Welcome. I think it's Juliana, not Julia. Juliana, but I stand, you know, if I'm wrong, please correct. So a thin layer, we don't need a thick layer. We just need a layer of varnish onto here, because that's good. hopefully we haven't. And I'm just going to stand up and make sure I've got this on here, maximising the amount of the corner onto there, and accepting that I am going to take some of that off, but that's absolutely fine. There we are. And before I do anything else, sacrilege, I know, but I want some of that. I want that other piece for another project. So I'm just going to chop across there. There we are. And then I can seal the top of this now. And then this can sit down to dry whilst we do the next bit. So I'm just going to give this a good layer. Knock out any of the bubbles that might be there on this as we go. I'm not intending antiquing this or distressing it. We're intending on keeping this as a relatively straightforward make for this evening. My crafty mojo has gone walkabout. I know, horror of horrors. Right, so that can now sit onto the floor. And this is why I wanted to do that. So again, we'll take the back of that and pop that onto here. But if you're careful with your rice papers, you can make your rice papers go a long way. And you could, sometimes I think it's difficult. You either use a picture one in its entirety, or you can mix and match. Hello, Ari. And I love this. So I just need that to, again, it's going to have to be slightly off because I've got hexagonal boxes. But that can line up with there. That can line up with there. And then I've got that piece onto there. So that's the whole purpose of that. And then I'll have used most of that rice paper. And I might use the scraps at another time into a mixed media art journal page. I might not. They might sit there. So there we are. Let's just make sure we've got a goodly coat of that over there. Then we can pop that on the side to dry. That's that one. Right. Step number 2 might be slightly more problematic. It's very much not like me to lose my crafty mojo, but it did go walkabout. So that is the back of the box. That is the front of the box. And this rice paper, the text is going from side to side, which is a bit of a pain, but not much of that text is going to be visible. And that means we've got 2 beautiful borders. So we're just going to do a little bit of a haircut for this. I know, yeah, taking a pair of scissors, but it's going to give me more pieces for background for an art journal page. So it does not necessarily mean that any of this lot is going to be display. So it's just going to be easier to manage this lot by chopping those 2 pieces out, popping that safely to the side, and then we can take our glue and pop it onto here. So let's just pop that onto here. And then we'll show you how I'm going to tackle the fact that it won't go all the way around. So that can go smoothly onto the bottom of there. So we're going to tackle that. And hopefully that I've got it smooth and straight. Okay. Yeah. Let's flip this round. Okay. So, the one thing I don't like when I'm decoupaging is a straight edge when I'm linking pieces. So I'm just going to give this a wee bit of a feather. There we are. And then I can stick that down. Okay. And now I've got this piece. So we've got a bit of a floral there, and we're going to put a bit of a floral up there. We're just going to trim out that edge just a little bit, just so I don't have a completely straight line. And we're going to pop that onto there. So let me just pop this. So I'm going to slightly overlap those two pieces. You see, and then you would barely know that I've joined those two pieces together. And that is the art of decoupage. So let's just repeat that on this side, because we've got another area. So all I'm doing is literally breaking down that edge a little bit, so it's not going to be a straight line. That little scrap, those little scraps are definitely going in there. Now, if I wasn't on a live, I might not have cut with a pair of scissors. I might just have left those to, you know, to sandpaper off, and I would have a little bit extra for using, and that's fine. But we are on a live. Okay. And again, at this end, I now need to work out approximately where that tear needs to be. So by overlapping, and then I can tear over. There we are. And it's just an easy, super easy way by doing this. Thank you, Achilles. It's beautiful, beautiful paper. It is, as its collection says, timeless. I have heard it described as nondescript and a bit based, you know, a bit uninteresting. But actually, I think it's a beautiful, timeless collection. So if I do that, it then becomes very difficult to see where I have added the two layers together. That makes sense. There we are. So let's just cover this, make sure it's all sealed in place. And that trick of just tearing that edge just allows you to do it. And because of the size of the box, then it really isn't going to be noticeable that there's text going the wrong way, because actually there's almost no text now on here, which is even better. There we are. Let's just make sure that that's down properly. And I've not counted the numbers of layers, so maybe I think that's still not got there on top of it. So there we are. I'll pop that onto there and pop that there. And we're going to pop that off to the side. So that's 2 pieces of rice paper over 2 boxes. Hello, Renee. There we are. So we don't need that. We don't need that. We can get rid of that. Oh, we will need that. And we do need that. No, it wouldn't be me, I guess. Well, no, it wouldn't be me if we didn't have some extra embellishments. Now, if you don't want embellishments on your pieces, you can leave it just with the decoupage and just let it dry and seal and call it done. But I wanted to add some extra pieces, so I have some pieces from 2 different molds. So in the Timers collection, there is, let's get rid of that off there before I close everything down, is a silicone mold. As you can see, I've overfilled some. I've taken this cartouche piece from here, which gives me this, and I've got a heart, and I've got little extra pieces. This one comes from there. So this is a great mold with several frames that you can use as you choose, really. So that's that one. So that can now go on the floor. And then there's a soft plastic mold that is safe to use the art resin in, and the rapid resin in even. And it has a little bird that comes out from there. And it has a beautiful floral piece that comes there. A car some presents. So this would be useful for Christmas. You can use it for Valentine's. You can use it for wedding. You could use it on a present for a man, because I think any of the men would like that. And then we've got some birds that are universal and a pretty dress. So a mould, I think, that can be used for lots of different things. So that's what we've done, and I've cast these in resin, because it's my preferred medium for casting, and I have my beloved white gesso, which I think was probably the first Pentacolor product I ever owned. It's beautifully thick, and therefore it will act as a primer, will cover most things easily, and also because it's so thick, when money's tight, you could also use it as a stencil medium. So that's also always cool, isn't it? Absolutely. Well, I'm yeah. Having to do the lives of Pent-Up means I have to think about it. So now I do have a dilemma for the next few weeks, which I shall share with you, lovely ladies, while I just give everything a coat of my resin pieces, a coat of the primer paste. So, and then we can have a little brainstorm as to what you might want us to do, because I typically will be using the previous month's Stamperia release. And this month's Stamperia release is 3 different Christmas collections. Now, one of them I absolutely adore. I haven't got it yet, but that's not a problem. I can get it. But I don't know about you. I'm not really a Christmas in July person. We could do Christmas in July if people want, but I'm not really a Christmas July. And I have asked the team at Pent-Up, but in a message, what they feel, but I haven't had an answer, which that doesn't help me very much. No doubt I will get an answer, but they haven't answered me thus far. So I don't really want to be doing Christmas from now on till, you know, until Christmas, really, because 6 months of it is just all overkill. So I have some thought process that I can carry on. I can make some nautical presents, like projects. I could make you do something else with Timeless. I can do something with Silent Seas. We could do something else with Venice City of Arts. We could perhaps play with the Stamperia Alice Christmas release, but do it more art journal style and not focus so much on the Christmas elements. And I can dig out my what's left from my Alice stuff from the past, because there's a fair, I have got the molds. What do you think, ladies? What would you prefer? Have I done all 3 of them? I think I might have done. Hey, there we are. Difficult, isn't it? Difficult choices. Right, so let's just give that a wee bit of a blush dry, because we can. There we are. I can get these painted. Just lift up this box at the same time, and we can get this dry. We're still in summer mode, to be honest. I'm with you. Okie dokie, Sarah. So, as no one else has commented, I think we will. Alice sounds great, but anything is okay. Okay, so we can work with that, but you know, stick to something that isn't overtly Christmas. So that's all cool. I think we can go with that, Alice. Lovely. So that's 2 votes for Alice, and Sarah says summer mode. We can do Alice summer mode. We can certainly do Alice non. And good evening, Leanne. Welcome, my darling. Long time no see you on a live. I trust you are very well. Mad Archers is clearly still open, as you have come in under your business name. So for those of you in the UK, Mad Arches is a UK shop that has some pent art on it, and I haven't looked for a while. So Leanne, can you say whether you've still got lots in stock, whether you're still getting some of the other products in? Okay, Liz, I'm with you. But in the UK, Christmas in July started in June on our craft selling channels, and we'll now carry on. Dear. So, hello, my darling Liz. Liz is please, everyone, wish Liz, lovely Liz Wheeler, a happy 25th wedding anniversary. So, because she's away celebrating this week, so I wasn't expecting to see her online tonight. So it's lovely. So what are you up to, Leanne? Are you busy working? Are you still running your shop? What are you trying to do? Right, excellent. So that's that baby dry. It's just I want to paint the inside of this, and I can't do that while that's wet. So and this is how I would work along. Yeah, if I'm doing something like this, I'd often have 2 or 3 different bits on the go at the same time to maximum fun. Flipping heck, my darling, will you look after yourself? That can be a lot of hard work. There we are. I need that to be properly dry, particularly around this top, before I can take a sanding disc to it, because otherwise I'll tear the rice paper. So that's why I'm concentrating on these edges, so that I can, there we are, pick up that. Let's pick up that. Oh, that might be easier, be quicker. So let me just, you will see me sand off rice paper on many occasions. There we are. Ugh, it's tacky on the bottom, so just be careful that I don't disturb that bottom too very much and destroy that rice paper. There we are. There we are. So it's going to allow me to paint the inside, which I can't paint with this slot on here. Well, I could try, but it won't work very well. It'll be in the way. And we'll have a bit of a pickle. There we are. So I think probably what we'll do then is I've got C-seam stuff already at home, so that's easy. So we might do C-seam one week, and I'll see if I get some of the next release in, and then I'll plan my project around when they arrive. But I think that we can definitely do Alice. I've certainly got the old Alice collection and molds, so that's something Alice can definitely work. There we are. So we have our boxes. See, so this is indigo in a Deco Paint Chalky, and that is vintage blue in the acrylic paint matte. So they're quite similar, aren't they? So there we are. We've got some different shades. Shades I think will all work with the project that the papers that I've got. So let's just pop. Let's do it this way round. We're not going for realistic today. We're going for stylized because we can. I know, me go stylized. That's a novelty, isn't it? So let's just give this. So I've just picked colours of paints that I think work with the papers. Because so I've gone coordinating shades of blues, and I have picked out green because I couldn't face the idea of doing it monochrome. and green and having blue leaves. But you do you. If that's the look you wanted, then that would work quite nicely. Some of that is still a little bit wet. So let's just give this a little bit of a coat. And this can sit to dry. I don't know. I think it's difficult for me to predict how long my lives will take. I know I did do quite a lot of prep, because you definitely didn't need to see me painting 6 sides, tops and bottoms of 3 different boxes, although the whole lot is actually going to be a suite of boxes. There we are. Let's just smooth that out, make sure we've got a layer of paint over everything. Okay. Right. Let's just get rid of some of that. There we are. So this is country blue. So let's just paint the flower of this country blue. Yes, it is country blue, and then we're going to go back to, because there isn't a leaf on this one, but I do have a plan to bring out the details. There we are. So that can go on to there. And we'll pop this into here. There we are. Okie dokie. So I've used indigo blue as the darker blue, and it comes in the Decor Paint Soft, which is a chalky paint, and also equivalent of the vintage blue in the acrylic paint mats. And then I have, say, the country blue, which is just a bit softer. I could have gone for a paler blue if I wanted, but this is in keeping with the vintagey tone I felt. From there, sometimes picking the colours that work with your project is, I think, sometimes the hardest thing to do, isn't it? Yeah, there we are. But we've not got masses of painting to do in terms of moulds tonight. There we are. So that can go there. That can go there. Let's just give that brush a little bit of a wriggle wash, and then we can. We've managed to miss half of that, and then we're going to be naughty and double dip because we can. Make sure we've got over there, and let's just take that darker blue for the bird. And as I say, I'm deliberately not planning on being realistic in our painting tonight. I'm just intending it to be a subtle monochrome effect with a little bit of green. And I know, no, that's not technically monochrome, but there we are. There we are. We'll leave that out again in a minute. But it's going to give me everything I need. So that blue can go onto there. So that is country blue, and then I've got country green, because tonally these colours are from the same things. There are a phenomenal range of colours, Leanne, from Pentart. So you just have to, but not everyone has every colour, and I think sometimes you just have to say, actually, do I really need every colour? She says, but yeah, I am lucky. I don't have, in fact, I don't think I do have every colour. I do have most of them, and I'm trying to behave and not buy more at the moment, because I just need to use what I've got rather than just always reaching for a new pot, because put the correct lid on the correct pot and that would help, wouldn't it? So let's just wipe that off out of the way, stick that into there, clean that pot off. See, you know it's mine because I've got my hands all covered in mess. Yeah, wouldn't, I mean, it's just what you do, isn't it? Here we are, 1, 2, 3. Let's take them out of the way. Let's just whip that over there, over there. Let's wipe. Well, they're chalky based paints, so if you know, so they cover really well in with one layer. So let's just take the box on the inside, which, as I say, is a wooden box that I have primed with the acrylic primer to neutralize the surface. I can still see some wood graining in it, but I know with the chalky paints that I will get pretty much, well, I will get complete coverage in one go, in one layer. So although they're bigger pots, they're I think 80 mils, 100 mils. They go an awful, and therefore they're more expensive because they are 100 mil pots. They go a long way because they are chalky, and that means that they cover really, really efficiently. So I'm covering that white surface without any of them. Yeah, I like the chalky paints. I think it depends on what you're going to do and how you're going to use them. I don't mind the matte. I quite like the matte. I do like the matte acrylics because they're matte. I have an aversion to sparkle, so that works for me. There we are. Good evening, Blanche. Welcome. There we are. So we'll just turn this round. So this is, you know, these are the processes that you need, so outside and inside, and then we're going to add some extra bits to coordinate them all through, because why not? And this is sort of how my brain works as we're doing things. Now I have pretty much fully decorated the smaller box and put it back together again. I do think it's a good process plan to take the your hinges off, particularly if you're going to be adding rice paper to them, because trying to shape your rice paper around hinges is completely possible, but is not always so easy. Good evening, Robinson. Welcome. Oh, thank you for joining us today. It's much appreciated. So we're using the decor paint, chalky paints, some matte acrylics, some rice papers, and we're just going to have a little bit of, and some moulds. Now I'm obviously using Stamperia and for my moulds and my rice papers, but the processes that I use can be used with moulds from any company or papers from any company. So let's just add this. So I definitely would take a lot more care to doing this bit if I wasn't on a live. There we are. But because my rice paper has got a layer of varnish, if I get paint on it where I don't want it, I can wipe it off, so it's not disastrous. And that's the importance of popping that extra layer of varnish on over the top and then making sure it's properly dry. It just allows you to wipe stuff off the surface when you couldn't if you hadn't protected your rice paper in the first place. Good evening, Kay. Well done for managing to join the live as it goes out. I know it's difficult, isn't it, with a job? I mean, it's not so easy to do that. Oh, there we are. So a little bit of home decor, upcycling, call it what you want. My boxes were new, but you know, you could be doing these on old battered box or on a piece of furniture. The choice is entirely yours. Let's just close that. There we are. There we are. Fingers are your best tools, aren't they? There we are. Have we finished painting? Not quite. Not quite. Right. Let's just give some of these a bit of a gloss dry. I'm actually going to pop some extra bits onto these. Because currently the details are all missing in these pieces. There we are. But I have a plan. It's always helpful to have a plan, I think. Because I'm wanting to add layers and rub back, I am going to protect these once I've got this paint dry with a layer of matte varnish. There we are. Which I have out. Hopefully that will now be dry enough, and then we can do this. Oh, she says, and I never use a decent brush when I'm adding varnish because, well, we all know I'm not good at looking after my brushes, don't we? So it's just not my try and hide from the fact. So this is just a varnish to coat this and to help keep this a little bit safer from everything else. There we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. So that's just, you see, I've already taken some of the paint off because I've got wet, sticky hands, but that's okay. Let's pop that over there. Then we're going to give our hands a jolly good wash because they're pretty filthy at the moment before we tackle the next bit. There we are. Let's just get rid of that. Make sure this has had a coating. Don't need a thick layer. Apart from anything else, it gets into the nooks and crannies and then sort of almost masks what you've got. So you definitely don't want thick, but I do want a layer of varnish over that. There we are. Oh. There we are. There we are. There we are. Good. Let's just give that a jolly good wipe. Get rid of some of this. Good evening, Lou. Welcome. So, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh, there it is. She says, what product have I got on my desk or haven't I put on my desk that I always use? You might well ask. So that's soft mold, silicone mold pieces are now done. Let's just give these hands a jolly good de-yuck. Having done the bulk of the painting. We haven't done all of it, but there we are. All right. But if I get the stuff that's stuck on my fingers off, then I'm less likely to transfer it when I don't want to. There we are. Particularly as I now need to pick a box lid and whilst those are drying and do a bit of sandpapering. I know, who'd have thought with 2 box lids? But there we are. There we are. There we are. Let's just get that clear and tackle that. That's better. So that one can now return to the floor. Let's return to this one whilst things dry. There we are. Make sure that edge is properly dry and give those a little bit of heat at the same time. Now obviously I've got a plan as to what I'm doing, where I'm going and how I'm building this. But clearly, if that's not, you know, you could do each step and let it dry in between, then think about the rest of it as you go. You don't necessarily have to do it in this order. I just worked out an order that I thought was going to work quite well for the purposes of doing a live and showing you the different steps that are needed. Let's do that. So this is the lid, and the eagle eyes might have spotted I've already done something to some of the sides of it, but that's okay. So I ummed and ahed about painting each. You're alternating the colours of paint going round the sides of the box, which would have worked, I think. Would have worked quite nicely. And then I decided I wanted a more shabby effect. I ummed and ahed about striping each edge of the box, and then decided that really that would do me head in, having to work out how to mask it all off and get all the stripes even and centerized all the way around. So I took the coward's way out, because why not take the coward's way out? Right, there we are. Excellent. So meeny, miny, 2 there. Let's find the holes in this. There we are. Dunk. Right. That might be a bit of a headache. There we are. Not a bit of a headache. There we are. So I want to add some stenciling to the sides of my box, but I didn't want to put it all together. And I wanted the stenciling to be contiguous across the 2 sides. So there we are. Let's just pop that onto there. So I've popped, and I could have put the screws back in, but then I knew that in some areas I was going to have the screws in the way of what I needed to do, and that was going to make my life more difficult. So your best friend, some good quality masking tape. Now then, this is when you really do need to be able to dry brush, and dry brush is exactly what it says on the tin, a brush that is dry, except that it's not dry completely. It has the tiniest amount of paint on it. So I'm going to pick up some of my cream white paint, and then I'm going to knock off just about all of it, so almost my brush feels dry. It won't be completely dry, but it really needs a minimum amount of ink thing into there. And then I'm just going to pop my stencil, and I want it to be fairly well lined up, and then I can tap through. And the stenciling isn't going to line up all the way around the box and on the edges, but that's just okay. There are some things that it's just not worth worrying about. And a little bit of paint and pouncing movements is what's required, and then build up the colour bit by bit by bit, rather than trying to get it all done in one layer. So I've now got a layer there, and I can have a slightly different bit of the stencil around here. And you can, I think by this you'll realise just how little paint you need when you're dry brushing, because although it looks like I haven't got very much and I took quite a lot of it off my brush, I am definitely getting paint through here. And I just need to be patient. Patience is not my middle name, as we all know, and build the colour up. And that is potentially a bit of a trouble, so let's just dip that into there, not have that moved off too much. we are. And let's just pop that over there. So there we are. So this is one of the stencils that comes with the Timeless collection. It's 12 centimetres by 12 centimetres, so it's ideal for smaller projects. Doesn't line up, so I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you use it on bigger projects. There we are. And then I'm just going to add and smoosh those sides with what's left on my brush, so it looks a bit more vintaged. There we are. So I can now lift that off there. Oops. Stick that over there. And just give it that shabby feel that I was wanting, rather than it all being the same. There we are. And that white on that, you can see just how little I've got on that brush. Really don't have very much on there, but it's softening that down quite nicely. There we are. So that's another technique, and I am going to give I've got more patience than you. Wow, I've done this a long time nowadays, haven't I? There we are. I have to say, I've done Facebook Lives for Pentart now for 3 years, possibly longer, maybe longer. I don't know. Right, eeny, meeny, miny, what do I want to do next? Another bit of a blush dry, because why not? There we are. Let's just give this all a helpful dry. Put this together. Give this a dry because this one is still wet. They're all coming together. Good evening, Phyllis. Welcome, my darling. How are you? How are you? Let's just get that edges dry. Phyllis had a lovely live last week. The Rust Effect with the new wall decor products. And I think there were only 2 Pentacolor lives this week, and myself today, and I think one of my Hungarian colleagues tomorrow. Yeah. So that's just sanding this down. So as I say, we've used two rice papers, but I split that rice paper over two boxes. The third box, the little one, I used 2 different rice papers just to be difficult, but they all come from the same collection, because you can buy the rice papers as a set of 5, I think, maybe 5, maybe 6. So it's quite helpful to have that. So I guess I'm going to have scraps that I can use on another project if I want to, or what as the case may be. Now I am going to grab some of that dark blue paint in a minute, because I want to edge the top of this box. Don't be tempted to ball with that dark blue. That can go down there. So, and then it can sit to dry. I've already painted the inside of this box, so let me now pick a reasonably nice brush for this, but not one that is too thick. Don't want a cat's tongue brush. That's just the end of the brush. There we are. So this is an angled brush intentionally, because I can run that up against the edge of the box. Thank you. And how is your dad now? Has he recovered from his fall at the weekend? Vasilis is in Greece, for those ladies who don't know who he is. And if we think the health service in the UK is struggling, we're not the only place who is struggling. So this angled brush is just going to make it easy to go up against that edge. Cover that so we've got a contrast. There we are, because I think it's going to work better. So we've got the and if you're wanting to create shades, then the angled brush allows you to do that really nicely. I am not the expert at using it for shading, but lovely Vasilis definitely is better at it than I am by a long way. But then he taught me, and I have probably needed to do a lot more practice. So there we are. We can pop this onto here. There we are. I think the blues are some of the colours that I use the most. Okay, so I might need some of those for splattering, but we'll pop those over there. So these pieces have been primed with cast with resin, primed with gesso, painted with Decor Paint Chalky and acrylic paint matte, and then I have sealed them with the varnish. And I'm just going to give them just a little bit of a blast dry, because they're not fully dry. I'm very much aware that they are not fully dry. And I'm going to add some stenciling on the inside of this using a different stencil when the word's gone. Get this as dry as we can. The technique like this are all about layers, all about developing the process. Until you get to the result that you're happy with. I'll give this a quick blast all the way around. There we are. Good. So, what else do we have lurking on our desk? We have a wet wipe. So, we have some Wool Lazur Pearl White. This is softer and metallic-y shiny, which is why I've decided that's what I'm going to use. But I want these boxes to feel light and breezy but decadent, and I'm going to use these in the same way as I would my white antiquing gel. So I'm just going to give this a layer over here, making sure I get into the nooks and the crannies, and then we're going to wipe back it's not so hot today, so I think I can probably do the whole piece, but it's going to give me just a softer, more feminine feel, more shabby. There we are. So let's do this one at a time. So let's just then wipe this back. Don't want to take it all off, but there we are. We can just get into the nooks and the crannies. So what that will reach into. But that I think that pearly white, you can see it's giving my piece a beautiful, beautiful shimmer. And it is definitely a softer feel to the white, the white antiquing gel that I used last week. So it depends very much on what you want to do. It gives a beautiful. Oh, we've been very hot, but the weather has broken, Vasilis, over here. I haven't had a crafty mojo and I'm sure it just went walkabouts. But I definitely think that the so if you can't get them, my darling, I'm sure that they will appear eventually, but the initial socks might well have sold out. But you could use a diluted down metallic paint, but you will need to be careful to lift it off quite quickly, or use the antiquing gels, and then maybe add a shiny varnish over the top to add your shimmer, or just use some waxes. There we are. So those are those. I'm going to pop those off to the side to dry. We haven't quite finished with that. The eagle eye might have seen it as well, but they are worth nagging your suppliers if you can. So that's going that way. So that's around the right way. So that can go there. Let us grab another stencil brush. I do have. There we are. There's another stencil brush because I want a dry brush. Because why not? Why not? And let's pick up that paper towel again. There we are. So we're just going to pop that into there. And I've picked up about 25,000 tons more than I need. So let's just take most of that out. And I'm pushing it. What I'm doing is also pushing it up the fibres of the thing, which makes our life easier. So let's just make sure we've got that up the right way, because around the right one way would not help. And then let's just add in so same technique as I did with the text stencil. I'm just popping that in and giving a little bit of a brush to add in with a very dry brush. It's just going to add a little bit of interest to the inside. Now on the small box, I've used a rub-on. In the middle box, I haven't added anything. I might well add, but I've got a rub-on that we can add to show you how to do that. So all the techniques will have been used across everything is the plan. So you can see that this stencil is quite nice because it's allowing me to push this in to the different side pieces. And I'm conscious I've got an area there that hasn't got anything in. I can pop that there. I've got little flowers that I can tuck in as I want to. So I might just now I'm just going to use what's left on my brush to shabby these edges up. Because I'm keeping the techniques the same for the different boxes. but wanting them to be different. And the dry brushing, so that blue is not fully dry at the moment, but that's fine. And we could add splatters if we want to, but or not, as the case may be. Let me just down just a little and get rid of most of that. There we are. A bit heavy-handed, but that's fine. We'll come round. So patience is definitely what's required for this. And am I using patience? Of course not. There we are. We're just going to make this a little bit more distressed. It's a style that I love. It's a style that's not uber precise and prescriptive, so that's always helpful. But that dry brushing then carries through across the pieces. Right, eeny meeny. Let's pop that on there. Now so this is the little box, and I've just added some splatters inside and a rub-on. So I'm going to pop some splatters onto the top of here. Maybe not quite as many as we have there, but so let's just pop a little bit of that dark blue paint onto there. And let's give it a spritz with some water, because that will help thin it down. We'll work this together. There we are. Right, excellent. And I'm deliberately not going to pop them on that middle box. But I want the first and the third to be the same processes, if that makes sense. So let's pop that into there. So that is this. I don't know why I should have spattered this with the blue while I had it out, but that's okay. So let's just take a rub on. We've got on the top of this box, we have the pastels. So let's just take this rub on. And I know I'm cutting it out the packet, but it's easier to do this because then I'm not disturbing it on its backing sheet. There we are. Let's just take this off here. And you need to make sure that when you're doing this, that the piece that you're working on is absolutely dry. So that's that side, that's that side. There we are. We might well have to get some more of that blue paint out and do a little bit of splatterage. Or we'll be tidying up the edges of this box. There we are. Hopefully, we can now pick up the edge of that. There we are. They're very well behaved, are those rub-ons. Give it a little burnish down. Okay. Let's just pop that off to the side. Is that the front? That's the front. There we are. So let's just take that brush. My bad for forgetting to do this, ladies, but hey ho. There we are. We might need a bit less paint and a bit more water onto there, but that's also just fine. There we are. There we are. So we have some splatters on the inside of that box. So that can go over there. That, oh, she says, probably putting her hand into the splatter when she didn't want to. But there we are. So let's just take that. And we will add white spatters on the inside of this box ultimately. So let's give that a blast dry before we make a mess. And then put splatters on the top of it. Some of this mess out of the way. We've got too much stuff lurking on the side, cluttering up several bits of it. Let's get these properly dry. Okay, so I'm going to seal the top of these boxes with some pouring glaze. You can put it around the whole thing if you want, but this is a self-leveling glaze that gives a very hard finish. And all I'm literally going to do is pop this onto here. It's almost like a resin light varnish, but it's a water-based product, so that you don't then have to worry about, you know, other things. And it will self-level, so that's always also very good. Though I am going to put a reasonable amount on and then add a dauber to even it out and lift some of it off. So just make sure we've got some of this over every bit of it. It will self-level, and you can come back in and add another layer as you want to. I like to just daub over it to even it out. So I've got no big clumpy bits, and it will shine, and it will convert it to a really super, yeah, you can see there as I move it, that's the matte surface, completely flat, and on the top, so it gives you that beautiful shiny surface. So I am denied about using a wax for the next stage. So that's box number 1. That is box number 2. Okay. This piece will ultimately go on the inside of that box lid in there, along with some white splatters. But for now, we will not be doing that. And I'm just wanting to add just another bit. So I've got this silver green metallic lasur here. Yeah, green silver metallic wall lasur. Okay, and I'm literally just going to kiss the surface of this with that colour. The same the bird, and the same the flower. Just going to add just that extra tiniest bit of detail. And you can say, is it necessary? If you don't like the look, don't use it. And if you can, it's a more subtle effect than using a wax. So I quite like it. Right, we'll have to stand up. Now I think that this cottage would probably glue just with the pouring glaze, but we're just going to add some of my heavy body gel matte onto there. And actually, I'm deliberately choosing to pop it off center. Yeah, so it's deliberately below the center. And we're just going to tuck our little bird on the top of there. So ladies, I later on, when this lot is dried, I will pop this on the inside of this box, and then I'm going to add white splatters as well, and I will paint the bottom of that green. So that's going to go there, that will go on there, that will go on there. So we have a trio of boxes that will all work together, that use essentially the same techniques, the same ideas, but have been built to work together. And then I should clean my hands. And I will come up with a project for next weekend, next week, depending on what I have. It will be seaside themed, or if the new Alice stuff has arrived, then I will use some of that. So thank you very much, ladies, and Vasilis, for joining us this evening, for watching what we're up to, that I've been up to. I hope you like the final results of these pieces. And I look forward to seeing you online next week. So take care, be kind to yourselves, and see you soon.